Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of Customizing Culture, the Heat Press Nation podcast. I'm your host, Jared Barbosa, and this is a very special episode. This is our season 2 recap episode. Now, in general, season 2 has just really been blowing me away. I've gotten to talk to so many really cool guests, people from across our industry and even industry adjacent, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. So what I kind of wanted to do with our recap episode was just give you the highlights. So if this is your first episode of listening to Customizing Culture, it's actually a good one. You're going to get all the good gold gems that we've had throughout season 2. And if there's anything that really stands out to you, be sure you go back and check out not just our episodes from season 2 that I'm going to be recapping today, but also we have a whole season. Season 1 of Customizing Culture is now available. Actually, by now, you should have all episodes of seasons 1 and 2 available on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host. I'm Jared Barbosa, and what's really funny about this episode is that I'm usually the one interviewing people. So we usually have 2 chairs in here. I'm interviewing the other person, and today it's just me. So it's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, hi, I'm Jared. So I'm not going to do it like that, but it is fun to be here like this. A little bit about me. So I work here at Heat Press Nation. I'm one of the instructors here. I do a lot of the product education and tutorials. And before I entered this industry, I knew nothing. I knew absolutely zilch. I really just came to this company because I needed a job. And I think I've told this story a couple times throughout the podcast. But for those of you guys who don't know me, I was working as a freelance graphic designer. I was contracted at a real estate company. So I was like, I was like 1099 over there. And it just wasn't enough. I was getting serious with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. But back then, just my girlfriend, and things were getting serious. So I was like, you know what? I need more. I need like a consistent job. And so as the Lord would have it, the first place to call me back was Heat Press Nation. I go in, I interview, I really like the company. And I was like, hey, what the heck? Let's do it. Right. And it was just a customer service job because that's what I knew at the time. So I knew nothing about heat presses. And within weeks, I think like my second or third paycheck, I threw it right back at the company to get a heat press, and I got a Cameo too. And ever since then, I've just been in love with the process. I love being creative. I'm a musician. Like I said, coming from a graphic design background. And so it was just really, it really just clicked for me once I got into heat pressing. And so as a result, I'm a fan. Like, yes, I work here. Yes, it's my job. But I am a genuine fan of heat pressing and all things creative and content related. So when the opportunity came to host a podcast about this stuff, and when I say this stuff, like heat transfer, garment decoration, entrepreneurship, all that stuff, I was in. And so it's been a really interesting journey for me to be able to talk to people and yes, as like a peer in some cases, and a lot of times just as a fan. And so season 2, we kicked off with a really fun guest, Lauren, AKA 3 Pairs of Ears. Now, one of my biggest takeaways from that conversation, well, first of all, we have a shared love for Disney, all things Disney. I love Disney. I want to be, once my son gets a little older, cannot wait to be a pass holder again. Anyways, it's not a Disney podcast. So we were able to bond over our love for Disney. And also, one of my biggest takeaways from that conversation was, because she's had viral success, but she's also had consistent success. And so a lot of people have this misunderstanding of like viral success, especially when it comes to social media like TikTok or Instagram. You see somebody and they'll get like 1 million views on a video, and you see that and you're like, oh, they just got lucky. The algorithm they just got lucky. And it's so easy to write people off saying, oh, the algorithm just, they lucked out on the algorithm today. And I think part of that comes, I'm going to be honest, I'll speak for myself. Part of that comes from a kind of a jealous, if I'm being real, my videos are not getting any views and hers got 1 million. So there's a little bit of jealousy there. You're trying to justify it because you put a lot of hard work into your content. You put a lot of creative energy into your content. and then yours doesn't hit, and then someone else's does. So you want to like, it's kind of a really bad inclination, but we almost want to like tear somebody down, right? So you try to write them off like, oh, well, the algorithm. But what was really interesting about my conversation with Lauren, 3 pairs of ears, was it's you can get lucky, right? But you can't stay lucky. Like when it comes to algorithms and social media, if you do happen to get quote unquote lucky, right, that's a one-time thing. The algorithm will choose to feed your content into certain people's feeds. And if nobody likes it, if it doesn't hit, you're not getting that again. The way that social media works is that they're going to feed your content to people they think are going to like it. But if they don't like it, the algorithm in its weird little magic AI computer brain will say, oh, people don't like this after all. We're not going to keep feeding that to other people. So yes, while you can get lucky, it takes a lot of hard work to stay lucky. And so that's kind of what I got from my conversation with Lauren, is she puts a lot of hard work into her content. And that's why she's so doggone successful. That's why she has multiple reels and TikToks with well over 1 million views. I think at the time of our conversation, one of her reels had like 19 million. I'm sure it's much higher than that now. And so that was just really inspiring for me, because I'm involved in all facets of creation here. Yes, I design t-shirts, I print t-shirts, I make them, I do content here. And yes, I do make content, so as a content creator, I was just eating that all up. I thought that was such a great way to kick off season 2 of Customizing Culture. And so after kicking things off with Lauren, 3 pairs of ears, we just had an onslaught of just super amazing and inspiring guests. I don't have time to name all of them, but trust me, every conversation I had this season of Customizing Culture I was just getting so many gold nuggets. And again, for me, I'm a fan and I'm a peer and I'm a creator. So I'm just absorbing all of this. So if you're looking for inspiration, be sure you go back to those episodes. One thing that really just got seared into my brain was from my conversation with Nick from A&N Custom Prints. Now, Nick, we're peers in a lot of ways. We are, what do you call that? We're running the race. We're running parallel tracks here. So Nick, he's a dad. He's a young dad. He has young kids. I'm recently a dad. I got a young kid. I got a son. And so, we're both running our custom businesses, roughly the same age. We still got our 9-to-5s, right? So I really felt like a kindred spirit with Nick. And one thing that he talked about was his story. So if you guys don't know, Nick ran into some issues. He was actually, and I don't want to give the whole story away, because if you haven't heard his story yet, you have to go back and check out that episode of Customizing Culture. But he was telling us about how he was actually involved in a sting operation, and not sting operation for anything crazy, like no illicit items or crimes. It was for doing, he was making products. I believe they were t-shirts using licensed artwork. So he was making t-shirts. I believe it was like Lakers and Dodgers gear without being properly licensed for that. And he actually got caught up in a sting operation. I won't tell you all the details. You have to go back and check it out. But it was a really interesting cautionary tale, because when I think of it, I'm like, look, I've made some stuff for personal use. All right. Not saying that I'm any better than anybody. Please, I hope it doesn't come off that way. And especially after hearing his story, I'm like, oh, I don't want to sell any of that anymore. It's just not worth the risk. It was a very sobering conversation, that's for sure. And so I really think that every content creator, especially I should say not just content creator, but every product creator, like garment decorator, or if you're making tumblers or keychains, the temptation is there. And he was talking about the temptation to just make some money. You're starting your business. You just want to make some money. And so you maybe use artwork you shouldn't be doing. You're taking some copyright, some trademarks, some IP that you shouldn't be using. And it came back and it got him. And since then, I've heard a few other stories on YouTube. It looks like the big corporations are starting to crack down. And yeah, that was a very sobering tale, but it wasn't just sobering. It was actually really inspiring, because I think if what happened to him had happened to me, I probably would have quit. All right. I probably would have moved on to something else. I'm like Michael Scott. I have a bunch of business names and ideas. I would have just moved on to the next one. But what was really cool about Nick is that he just kept trucking forward, man. He's still staying through it. He's still maintaining. He's still going. He's still chasing the dream. And I thought that was super inspiring because even when you have like a certain setback, you could still go for it. So this podcast is just fun to do. I love being able to host this podcast for Heat Press Nation. And as far as, if we're talking about fun, I had a lot of fun in this season because we actually got to shoot a few episodes remote. We were invited to the Silhouette Summit in Honolulu, Hawaii. So, I've been on a few trips for this company, great places. We've been to Atlanta. I think I've been to a few other cities. Great, right? When you get the call and they're like, hey, do you want to go to Honolulu? I was like, yes, I'll find a way to be there. So it was really exciting. We had a great time at the conference. They announced their new products. But we were also able to shoot some episodes of the podcast in Honolulu, Hawaii at the Silhouette Summit. And of course, we had to kick it off with one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite creators of all time, my Heat Press hero, Big Brando. So Big Brando, if you guys don't know, there's two. We have, he came back for his second episode. We shot it in Hawaii. Go check out both of those. Big Brando is like the creator's creator. So your favorite t-shirt creator, he is their favorite t-shirt creator, if he's not yours as well. So he has so many videos with just such real and inspiring content. So it was a blast to be able to kick off our little Hawaii mini series with Big Brando. We got to chop it up, talk about the new Silhouette machines, and honestly, just hanging out with him. It was a great treat. Like anytime I get to sit down with like some of like my Heat Press heroes is always a blast. And then there was a little fun tidbit, which I was actually glad they kept it in the podcast. So we're in the middle of our episode, right? And of course, we're in Hawaii. We're at a resort. There's families there. So a little kid comes running behind right in the middle of our interview. And then the mom comes chasing her. And we thought it was the funniest thing. And so it kind of broke our conversation. But at the same time, both of us were like, oh, dude, because, he's a dad. I'm a dad. And you see that. And you can't help but chuckle because it reminds you of your own kid. And so I thought that was really funny. And then the episode airs. And I thought our editing team was going to cut that out, but they left it in. And to me, it's just a reminder of like, dude, you can't take yourself too seriously, man. You just know, you're doing your thing. Yes, you're running a business. You're trying to shoot a professional podcast. But at the end of the day, you can't take yourself too seriously. I know Brando doesn't. He's such a down-to-earth guy. And that's one thing that I was really able to absorb, not just from my time with him on the podcast, but we got to hang out a little bit afterward. And just be real, man. And so I thought that was an absolute treat. In Hawaii, we also got to sit down with one of my old, I feel like I'm a fan of like everybody. I love all the Heat Press content. So Crystal Ann, been following her for years. She actually built 2 channels. So if you want to hear a podcast from somebody who's overcome some struggles and just absolutely kicked butt, Crystal Ann she's the star of her own channel, Crystal Ann. And then she's also the star, not anymore, and we talk about that in the podcast, but she really helped build the Design Bundles channel to where it is today. And so we got to talk to her about pulling double duty. And then, of course, had a great conversation with Corinne Blackstone out there in Hawaii. And we just had a really good time chopping up. She was able to share her journey, which was really interesting for me because I hadn't yet started following her. So I was a very, very new fan before we got to sit down. And then just talking to her, I was like, girl, like, yes, I am a big fan now. So you have to go check out those episodes from Hawaii. It's fun. We're out there. We're on location. And we're getting to just hear just great stories from great creators. And honestly, like for me, it's been really, really inspiring. And on the topic of inspiration, my episode with Kenji Hilton, another peer who he's just killing it in a niche market. And so for me, my niche is taco t-shirts. And if you follow the podcast, since episode 1, I've been talking about how my business has been down. I've been, the world's worst t-shirt shop owner and blah, blah, blah. I can't wait to start my business, blah, blah, blah. One of the cool things about talking to people like Kenji, like Brando, and like all the other guests that we've had in this season is that it actually inspires me as an entrepreneur. Yes, I work here at Heat Press Nation. Yes, it's my regular job. But when I go home, I got to put on that entrepreneur hat because I love doing this. I love heat pressing. I love making t-shirts. And so I have my own business. I have my own t-shirt line. And so the line's been on hold ever since I had my son. And so he's a year and like 3 months now. So it kind of gives you an idea of how long my shirt business has been on hold. Well, after talking to all these amazing guests before, or I should say, right around, let's see, almost my second to the last guest. So within the past 2 or 3 episodes, I've just been, this whole season 1, season 2, I've just been receiving all this inspiration from creators just like me. And it's been amazing. And so finally I did it. I launched my t-shirt line. And I say t-shirt line, I launched it with a hat. So I don't even have any t-shirts for sale right now. I launched one hat, and it was a combination of a few things. First of all, talking to everybody on this podcast made me realize that it doesn't have to be perfect. If there's one thing that I've just kind of gleaned from everybody, it's like, just get started. So I almost want to interview my wife on this podcast because I've been telling her for so long, I'm like, babe, no. Let me get I want to do the product shoot. I want to launch with 3 shirts, 2 hoodies, 4 hats. Like I wanted to do this big, incredible drop with like professional photography, professional models wearing my gear so it could look like just this high-end brand. And I had such big plans, and being a dad and having a full-time job and being very involved at my local church and with my band and so many different things going on. I have a huge family. There's a birthday party like every week, and so I could just never get around to my big, huge product drop. And so my wife would just tell me, hey, just put up like one new t-shirt, just get like one design done. And I'm like, no, right. And of course, I should have just listened to her the first time, because now here we are, like 20 something, almost 30 episodes later. And what I've just been getting from this podcast is, hey, just get started. Just get started. And it kind of reminds me of something I tell my customers all the time is you could earn faster than you could save. So if it's a money thing, if you're waiting to build all this capital and save up all this money to launch with, a huge deep stock of like 10 different products, like, hey, just start with one, make some money off of that, and you could earn faster than you could save. And so that's something that I finally put into practice. So a couple of weeks ago, I finally launched my t-shirt line. I should say my hat line. It's one hat right now, and I've already gotten some sales, and it's exciting. And so I'm super excited for season 3. So next season of Customizing Culture, season 3, I'm really excited for those conversations, because instead of me being an aspiring small business owner, I am a small business owner actively trying to make it work, not only with my products like my t-shirts, but with my own content. And yes, I make content here at Heat Press Nation. But if you go to like my t-shirt line on Instagram, you're not going to see much. There's not a lot of content there. I feel like I spend all my content energy here, which is interesting because you have creators who, they still have their 9-to-5s. One of my favorite creators of all time, Big Brando, he talks very openly about how he still has his 9-to-5. He still has his regular full-time job and creates, on the side. And that really inspires me. And so, I don't know, I'm very excited for the conversations that are to be had in the coming season. I cannot wait to dive into more industry specific. I mean, again, as a fanboy, when I got to talk to Greg from Insta and my buddy Patrick from Caesar, I'm just there like, because I love watching those how it's made videos, right? And so being able to kind of pull the curtain back on some major companies, I believe in season 1, we had Wyatt from AS Color. I love those shirts. I'm excited for more of those episodes. I'm excited for more inspiration. I'm excited to hear from a broader spectrum of creators and entrepreneurs this year, this season. Got to talk to some really cool people. The guys over at Squad Creatives, Courtney Brickle, man, who else did we have on the podcast? I feel like we had so many people. I'm going to forget naming somebody, but every conversation left me inspired. And I hope if you're watching this, if you're a regular listener or viewer of Customizing Culture, I hope that every episode has brought you some sort of value. If you're watching right now and you have some ideas for season 3 of Customizing Culture, whether it's creators you want us to talk to, topics you want us to cover, do me a favor, drop that in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, you could leave us a review. And then you could email me and the team, podcast@heatpressnation.com. I'd love to hear your feedback if you have ideas, people we should be talking to. Funny enough, one of my favorite guests from season 1, Lee Stewart, he is actually asking like, hey, when can we get back together for another episode? And I'm just like, because he's probably like my number one favorite content. Not that they're ranked. I love everybody. But, he's probably one of my favorite content creators out there. So, be on the lookout for some really cool collaborations, some really great conversations, and some more inspiration on season 3 of Customizing Culture. But I think this is going to be it. This has been our season 2 recap. If this is your first episode, hopefully you've gotten an idea of what the Customizing Culture podcast is like. And I really encourage you, go back, start from episode 1. Or if you're like me, I am the worst consumer of podcasts, because if I find a new podcast, instead of listening from episode 1, I'll just scroll through and I'll find episodes that I like, and I'll just like kind of cherry pick the ones that I want to listen to. Hey, if that's you, go for it. I honestly cannot pick a favorite episode. I feel like I love them all. And I really hope that you find something that you like in there. Now, that's going to do it for me here. This has been our season 2 recap of Customizing Culture, the Heat Press Nation podcast. One more time, if you want to send your suggestions, please do. You can comment on Instagram. You could reach us in the comments here if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, you can leave us a review. Email me. We'd love to hear your ideas. That's going to do it. I hope you guys have a great day and a great time creating. We'll see you all around.